pass it over to Shar.
Okay, yes, thank you. Again, thank you and welcome to the enrichment series. As Sarah mentioned, this month we're going to be discussing delegation of authority log, which I think quite often is overlooked in its importance, both as a monitor and as a coordinator. Quite often the DOA log has been the source of errors found during monitoring visits.
Now that should work.
Okay, so first of all, what is the delegation of authority log? It can also be known as the delegation of responsibility log, and it also can be used as a signature log in some cases. But it is a list of appropriately qualified persons to whom the principal investigator has delegated significant trial-related duties. Certain duties can be delegated, however, the PI does hold ultimate responsibility for the overall conduct of the trial, and this is something that he cannot delegate. And this is according to 21 CFR Part 312B and GCP Section 1.34. And generally, the log should include any and all team members that will be performing significant trial-related duties that could impact subject safety, protocol compliance, and any data quality and integrity. And personnel that perform administrative tasks or routine procedures, such as floor nurses or some pharmacists, if they're performing the standard of care assessments or treatment that is not, they're not considered to be key personnel and do not need to be on the DOA log. The DO log, let's see, okay. That works?
Yeah, this one.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, so according to the NIH clinical research qualifications, training and responsibility guidelines, which there is a copy of this in the folder that Sarah mentioned, the purpose of the DOA is to conduct a clinical trial safely and properly. The principal investigator must comply with applicable laws, regulations, and institutional policies governing the conduct of sponsored research. In addition, the PI is responsible and accountable for selecting an adequate number of qualified, trained clinical personnel staff and must review their qualifications before delegating any study-related duties or tasks. The FDA guideline or FDA guidance for industry investigator responsibilities regarding the DOA log state that at a minimum, the staff that's being delegated are familiar with the purpose of the study. They have an understanding of the specific details of protocol. They have completed and documented the necessary protocol training. They are aware of all applicable regulatory requirements and accepted standards for the conduct of the study and protection of the human subjects, and that they are informed of any pertinent changes during the study and receive additional training as appropriate. And again, this is from the FDA Guidance for Industry Investigator Responsibilities, a copy of which is in the folder. And it is the PI's responsibility to ensure the DOA is continuously updated throughout the study lifetime to accurately reflect the study team members' responsibilities and maintain along with other essential study documents. And this is the area where I have found that most of the errors occurred, in that people may be coming on and going off of the study, and the DOA is not uploaded, not updated, or the PI has changed and the DOA log has not been updated. So, and we will discuss this a little bit further. Yeah,
Just the right arrow.
Okay, so this is an example of a DOA log. You may receive one that's provided by the sponsor, or you may have created your own. Again, this is just an example of one that I created. And we're going to go step by step on how to fill this out. And the first thing we want to do is at the top, you can see there is an area that is circled in red. And we want to make sure that we put the study specific information, the title of the study, and also who the investigator is. You might also want to include the study site number in this area. Okay, so now this is the part where you're going to be adding the names and their signatures and what their roles are. Again, you want to have the name, signature, and initials. And again, this could also be used as a signature log, so they can compare any documents that are signed compared to this log. And when they sign this form, they are indicating that they do understand what their delegated tasks are. Okay, so here we're going to complete the study personnel role, i.e. the principal investigator, sub-investigator, clinical research coordinator, research nurse, research pharmacist, etc. And so you would look at the abbreviations that they have there and pick the correct role. And there could be, one person could have a number of different tasks assigned to them. And then on this slide, we have actually what the tasks are that are being delegated. You should be completing the responsibilities column with all the tasks responsible for that individual. For example, they might be delegated, obtaining vitals, entering data into EDC, obtaining medical history. So they could have a number of things that are listed in their responsibility column. Okay, so the tasks that are usually delegated to members of the study team are obtaining informed consent, assess inclusion/exclusion criteria, obtain medical history, administer study questionnaires, ConMeds, collect and report AEs, evaluate AEs, the severity and the relationship, and also the study drug handling and dispensing, the regulatory documents, and the CRF entry and query resolution. Now, there are some of these tasks that can only be performed by certain people of the team. For example, a physical exam can only be performed by a medical person, either another MD or a nurse practitioner. They cannot be performed by a coordinator. The same thing with assessing the AEs and the SAEs. The coordinator can collect them. However, it should be a member of the medical team that assesses them. There's also a place on the DOA log for other. And an example of what you might put here would be maintain, communications or something such as that. That might be regulatory, but it could be separate. Okay, so the start and stop columns should note the start date and the end date of each individual's involvement in the study related task. So again, when they're first filling out the form, you're going to put the start date, and you never backdate this form. You always put the current date and then the date that they stop. The PI should initial and date all of these to indicate that he understands, that he knows when they started and when they stopped. So if a new member of the team should come on, new personnel is hired, you want to make sure they get on this form with the correct start date. If a member of the team leaves, you want to make sure that you have the end date. Okay, and again, the PI just initials and dates the start and end date of the personnel. The signature at the bottom. Quite often we will find that the PI will go ahead and sign this and date it. However, this area is to be signed only at the end of the study. So quite often when I'm having the PI sign the documents, I will cover this part up so they don't accidentally sign it. And then also you want to make sure that you number the pages. And quite often I have seen this written as page 1 of 1, page 1 of page, it just continues, they page 1 of 1. However, that's not what this means. You would need to count all of the pages, and there are some DOA logs that can have a number of pages. So for example, if you had 8 pages, it would be 1 of 8, 2 of 8, so forth and so on. Sorry.
So question,
Yes,
Is there a restriction on who can do what kind of duties?
that is in the guidance documents. And again, basically, as long as they're trained, and it does also, these documents do give guidelines on how the people should be trained. And it also states which tasks should not be assigned to, to certain people. For example, the medical exam, assessing the severity of the AEs, getting the drug, preparing the drug, getting the drug, and sometimes even assessing the vitals cannot be assigned to someone else. Sometimes the sponsor will have certain requirements.
So are these usually dictated by like your licensure, certifications, or what kind of training? So say a coordinator wants to do a blood draw. Is that allowed?
Yes and no. If the coordinator is trained, then yes, they could do a blood draw. And that, for example, would be listed under your other, that they're going to be doing blood draws. However, if that coordinator is not trained, then no, the PI should not be delegating them to do that task.
So, and when you say is a coordinator trained, what do you mean? Like what qualifies as training?
Well, usually when someone is trained, there is documentation of that training, signed by not only by the trainee, but also by the trainer. And that is acceptable to to both the guidelines. And for example, if it's a nurse practitioner, she's going to have a license. And then also the guidance documents do give a list of things to look at, which basically it's, do they know the protocol? How have they been trained on the protocol? And quite often this will mean that there have been meetings to discuss the protocol. There has been an SIB where the sponsor had come out to discuss the protocol. So I guess, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Or also like a follow-up question, maybe just running other scenarios in my head.
Mhm.
And people on the call should also jump in with what their experiences have been. So say I'm a coordinator in cardiology.
Mhm.
I have been a coordinator in cardiology for 20 years.
Mhm.
I have seen more EKGs than I ever want to see in my whole life.
Mhm.
I have read those EKGs,
Mhm.
but not under my name.
Mhm.
But now, can I say that I'm trained to read an EKG and do some
No.
interpretation?
If-
But I have been trained. I have been doing this for 20 years.
Who has trained you?
Oh, I've just gotten all this. That's my job.
You're not trained.
So I can speak to this a little bit if you want.
Yes,
Sure.
please.
This is Carolyn.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure if people could hear me. I'm working remotely. I work in the clinical trials office as a sub-investigator and a research coordinator. I'm a physician assistant. So when it comes to some of these tasks that sort of bleed over into more medical territory, the highest authority you always have to follow is, national and state laws regarding medical tasks and who is allowed to do those. And there is some gray area sometimes on what a medical task is, but in general, any interpretation or viewing of a test result, like a lab result, an imaging result, an EKG, a physical exam, those are all things that are medical tasks that need to be done by some kind of licensed medical provider, like a nurse practitioner, physician, PA. So yes, logically, can you read an EKG? Yeah, you probably do have a lot more EKG knowledge than, say, someone that's a pediatrician and doesn't order EKGs all the time. But if you don't have a medical license, you're not allowed to interpret those tests. And then after that kind of state national law, there's what the IRB allows, and then separately what the sponsor allows. So you kind of have to make sure that you're following all those, you're meeting all those requirements before you can do something. I know our institution allows coordinators to be trained on vital signs and phlebotomy, lab draws, but like at Children's, coordinators are not allowed to do vital signs, even if they've gone through special training, which we offer at the TRU. Does that help any?
Oh, that,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah,
that
that's
helped a lot.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for all of that.
And I think that component of, what are your state laws or institutional policies, that plays into this a lot as well, because so I was at an institution earlier in Texas and we basically wrote this policies on this. So based on that, we allowed our coordinators to undergo phlebotomy training and which was done by the hospital. So the hospital accredited them, certified them rather, and then they were free to do it on their own accord. The same went for blood pressures and other vitals and yeah. But I
Yeah.
think when it comes to something that is directly correlated to patient safety and outcomes, such as reading an EKG, you could be having an MI and you can't rely on a coordinator to do that regardless of the experience. That's when your licensure steps in. And just as GCP guidelines, right? Good clinical practice means have a better qualified, educated, experienced person do that task than not.
Quick, and similar situation, if the coordinator has been trained on how to obtain vitals, however, discovers that the blood pressure is extremely high, it is not the coordinator's responsibility and not her task or their task to decide what should be done. This should then be taken to a medical personnel to decide what is to be done with that patient at that time.
Shar, if I'm filling out the log, I got a new study on the CRC, I'm filling out the log. Can I type in my research staff's name in the column that says print? Or can I print their name in? Or is the requirement that each individual staff member print their own name? And then I know they have to sign it and put their initials, but the printing part.
For the printing part, I've actually seen it done both ways, either I should say 3 ways. It can be typed, or the lead coordinator could have put all the names in, printed all of the names, or the coordinators do it themselves. Of course, the reason for putting in the printed name or the typed name is because a lot of times the signatures cannot be read. They're quite difficult to understand who it is signing. And so the printed name is to cross-check the signature with the name.
Okay, that helps. I'm at that point right now, and then I have a question. I had that question of, is there a right and wrong with the printed name? So that helps.
Good question. I didn't hear the question.
I think she said it helps.
Oh, okay.
Ceiling.
It should be in here, so it's up to you guys if you want me to play around with switching speakers, because I think it is just in the computer versus the in-room. I can just put it up full volume.
No, that's fine. Don't mess with it. Otherwise we lose connection or something.
Yeah, I think it might be this one. I mean, if you want, we can do another audio test really quick.
Okay.
I think it should be this one. Can somebody just chime in? I think this audio will be better.
Sounds okay.
Yeah, it sounds the
So
same.
make it 100.
Me.
Yeah, I think you guys are hearing us clearly. I am at least.
Yeah, it was a
having
little,
trouble.
yeah, normally it comes from the ceiling, but
Right.
it seems to be coming from the tower, but I think we should be good now, so.
Okay, so 3rd time trying this. What happens if there is a change of principal investigator? The DOA log does need to be updated. However, there are 2 ways that this can be done. One would be to start a new DOA log where the old DOA log, the outgoing investigator would sign off on an end date for all of the people participating in that trial. And then a new log would be started under the new principal investigator with a new start date. And then the new principal investigator would have to sign off on their start date. However, there's also the option of keeping the existing delegations and putting an end date for the PI, the outgoing PI, and then doing a note to file, basically stating, when the court, or when the principal investigator left, and any changes or additions on the DOA log that occur should be made on the DOA log. Let me explain that. If the study team is staying the same, they can stay on the old form with a note stating that the PI has left, but the tasks have not changed. However, if there is a new employee, that should then go on a new DOA log. Is that understandable?
Yes, very helpful.
Okay, so any changes to the DOA, to the role or the tasks that are delegated should be noted on the DOA log and should include the following for each individual change. Basically, it's following your GCP. The current delegation line for that individual should be updated with an end date. The new delegation line is created noting the updated role or delegated study task and is acknowledged by the PI by signing and dating the entry. And again, following GCP guidelines, any changes that you're making should be lined through and then dated and initialed. If there is a name change for a member of the team, there should be an end date on the previous name and then the new name entered on a different line with the PI again initialing the start date. And it's also helpful to have a note to file or some type of documentation stating that there was a change in the DOA log and why the new entry is being done.
There's also a question in the chat,
Okay.
just how these changes can be captured, being done in electronic logs.
Very good question. Moving forward with the implementation of Florence, hopefully this the DOA logs will become much simpler to keep track of and to assign. However, that is a question basically for the Florence team. And at the end of these slides, I have actually put the link to the Florence training. And again, I'm not prepared to describe how to do that because it is a task that should be addressed by the Florence team.
I guess electronically, it probably is not as tedious, where you have to re-enter every time, say, a activity changes, you got to create separate line, probably not, hopefully not, I don't know.
Well, where I can see this being of most benefit is quite often when the coordinators are trying to obtain signatures, they might print out one for Dr. Joe to sign. Then they'll print out another one and give it to Dr. Mary to sign and have it out to a number of different people. Perhaps they sent it via email. And so then you start getting them back, maybe, they're emailed back or faxed back. And now you have 4 different logs with 1 or 2 names on each log. And so then there has to be a procedure for how you combine all of those. And I do think that when it's done electronically, that can be avoided.
I think that, can you open the chat box separately?
Yeah, the question was, do you have to do both a note to file and change the new name on the DOA?
You do not have to. However, I do make a recommendation simply because there might be, a new coordinator coming on who now has to, provide information regarding the DOA log. And the new coordinator doesn't know that, Joe Smith is now, Joe Jones. So I do recommend having the deal or the note to file to explain why the change was done. Okay, so just some additional information to throw out there. There more than one team member may be assigned the same task. There might be a coordinator and a backup coordinator. Perhaps there is a research assistant who can do some of the task. And if it is a multi-site study, then each site should maintain their own DOA log. And the lead PI should have access to the most up-to-date DOA logs for all the participating sites, which if this is a pharmaceutical sponsored company, they will be collecting DOAs from all the sites. Some tasks, again, we've talked about this, can only be delegated to medical providers such as the physical exam, adverse events, and serious adverse event assessments. Must maintain the DOA logs along with their essential documents. So basically, if you have the paper binder, you're keeping them there. However, moving forward, they will be, they should be in Florence, and that is where you will be storing them, currently while the study is going on, and then also for archiving. Corrections should follow the GCP guidelines. At the end of the study, all aspects of the form should be completed, meaning the end dates should be entered, the PI signature should be obtained. Also, another piece of information is that there are some departments or entities that have their own master DOA log. For example, the ATRU, they have their own master DOA log that the manager updates with the start dates and end dates. If the sponsor does need one, they can do a separate DOA log just for that study. And pharmacy, investigational pharmacy is similar to that also. They don't have to sign a separate DOA log for that specific study. It can be a master. Any
So
questions?
is there a policy that states that? Because companies I know want to add everyone on their own logs.
Yes, there are policies, and you can obtain that either by reaching out to Renee or to pharmacy. What Carrie, is that who it is in pharmacy? Can't remember the name.
So just to ask for clarification, so are you saying that the IDS, they have their personnel sign a log that's in their office? And so
Correct.
we can have an SOP, copy of the SOP in the regulatory binder for the trial that states and have that with our DOA log, so we don't have to get signatures?
That is correct.
Great, thank you.
And in fact, I actually found this out during an audit when we didn't have a DOA log with all of the ATRU staff on there. And that is when I found out about this, the master LOA, or I'm sorry, the master DOA log. And it was acceptable by the FDA auditor.
Excellent.
Okay, so if you want something done right, do it yourself. No. You want to delegate, but you want to make sure that they're doing it correctly. And I do realize this is something of a short presentation. However, we will now open it to any questions, or if there's anything else you want to ask that does not pertain to the DOA log, we're certainly happy to answer those questions.
So when you submit to the IRB does not look at the DOA logs and
No.
stuff like that. This
No.
is just regulatory.
Exactly. This is a regulatory document. The IRB does not look at it. Any other questions?
You know, the age-old issue, if you're having paper-based DOA logs and you lose it, then how do you mitigate that?
Well, and it has happened to me. And at that point, it's just, a note to file explaining what happened. Hopefully, knock on wood, the study has been monitored and the sponsor has a copy of the DOA log. However, that, is taken a very rose-colored glasses view of it. They may not have a copy, but you can't go back and recreate it because the people may or may no longer be there. If the people are still there, you can start the new log. But again, you're not going to backdate it. You're going to use the current date.
So another reason for everyone to start using Florence.
Exactly,
because there you will not have this issue.
exactly.
Anyone on the call wants to share their experiences or incidences or anything like that in their careers, maybe some special situations they came across?
I think I did cover the situations that I have found, either doing monitoring myself or being monitored. um, You know, the new staff not being added, old staff not being taken off, the PI signing, you know, at the bottom, when it's supposed to be at the close of the study, or duplicate copies of the DOA log with no explanation as to why there are duplicates. For example, you have, one team member sign, a DOA log that you either emailed or sent to them, and now you have 4 different logs or 4 pieces of paper, but they each have just one name on them. And so, that would, well, I mean, it's obvious what happened, but you would want to explain that.
Hi, Shar. This is Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi. So I don't know if you want to address, and you briefly addressed it, but just how the sponsors are always trying to get you to add ancillary staff to your signature logs or delegation logs. A lot of times like Freighter techs or EKG or different things where Freighter nurses, where they're doing their job as they normally would for ancillary tasks, and the sponsor is still trying to get them to be put on the log, and how normally we don't do that.
A good question, and in fact, you may want to share what we went through a number of years ago when we were being told that we had to have the floor nurses on the DOA log, and that they had to have city training. And we did have to push back to the sponsor, and I don't want to say won, because we didn't win. We just, made our point of why it did not need to be there. And again, that is why there is the policy for the like for the ATRU, for the pharmacy, they have their policies, and then also in the guidance documents, it does state that if they are performing their routine tasks, things that is within the scope of their job, they do not need to be in the DOA log.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Companies or monitors for companies will come and they will say, everyone who's touching the study in any shape or form needs to be on that log. If you don't have a SOP within your department or division, I think I would highly encourage you to create one that says activities conducted as part of anyone's clinical duties are being done as part of their clinical duties. It's just that they are rendering those services for your research project, but it really falls under their licensure. And that is the logic behind saying that, okay, not everyone is going to be on this log. It's only going to be the research team primarily, and others are in the supportive role, and therefore it's okay to not have them on the log. That's how the TRU has their own log. That's how the pharmacists have their own log, and they maintain that internally. And you can get a copy and share that. That's good enough.
I will actually get a copy and have Sarah put it in the folder so that will be in there for you.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's the same thing, but Freighter has an SOP on it also, that I've printed out before, that they've given me before, and I've sent that to sponsors, and that helps sometimes with trying to get them to not have you put those people on the logs.
Sheila, can you share that with,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's been updated since the last time it's been sent to me, but we can try and find out. I'll send it to Shar, and then we can see if that's the most recent one or the most updated one. But I have had good luck with sending that one sometimes.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So let me ask this, if you have a clinical research assistant who is filing documents, that's all she's doing, or he's doing for the study, filing documents, do they need to be on the DOA log? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes, that is correct, because they are handling documents for the study. Okay, how about if there is an administrative assistant and the PI ask them to create a data collection tool? Basically just coming up with a spreadsheet with information across the top that he will be collecting. Does that person need to be on the DOA log?
I would say no.
Not if there's no data on it.
That is correct, yes. Another question, has the PI ever designated or delegated assessment of severe adverse events to a coordinator? And this I'm going to say yes, because I have seen it. So sometimes we do need to provide some education along with the obtaining signatures for the DOA logs. However, that was, one case out of, hundreds that I have dealt with. So it doesn't happen very often, but you do want to check to make sure that it's being delegated correctly.
Yeah, that'll get you a warning letter from their FDA pretty
Yeah.
fast.
Any other questions or comments?
Have there been any recent audits done with the electronic logs? I know like Florence helps us with the technical part of creating them, but we're more interested about the regulatory side, like how they see the new line versions and everything. Has there been any feedback on that?
Not that I am aware of. I don't know if Jen is on the call and might have any information about that, or perhaps I could reach out to the Office of Research. I do know, I do have some acquaintances in the Cancer Center, and they have been using Florence for quite a while. I know that they have had some recent audits, but I'm not sure if they included the electronic documents, but I can reach out to them to ask, and then can send out an email to let you know what I find out. Again, I'm not aware. I know we've had a lot of monitoring using Florence, but I'm not aware of an audit that has taken place using Florence.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Sorry, nothing additional? Okay, well, I guess we're at the end of our presentation. I do very much appreciate you attending, and I hope it was educational and that you did learn something that perhaps you didn't know before. So with that, I guess we'll end it.
All right, thank you, everybody.